Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located on planet Earth. It is that time again, time for another PulseWave report with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. We're back to business now. There's a lot going on in the world, a lot of news to be had, and I think it's time to talk about it. If you are unaware, because you haven't had your coffee yet, go ahead and get that coffee going, because this morning you're going to need it. Nothing like an old fresh cup of coffee in the morning. All right, so right now your Dow Futures are trading above 30,000. That's right, Dow 30,000. You're up 247 points. The E-mini S&P 500 is up 33.5 points at 3,600. 3,687. 3,687 S&P 500. Who knew? I remember back when the S&P 500 was pretty much 500. Wow, man. All right, what about that NASDAQ 100? It's up 129.25 points at 12,495.75. I remember when the NASDAQ broke 5,000 for the first time ever. What about the Russell My Hustle? Ladies and gentlemen, you're at the 1900 level in the Russell. You're at 1940, up 30. What about gold? Well, gold is a little stuck in the mud. It's down $2.30 at $1,841.04. What about silver? Well, silver is up 23 cents at $24.31. And what about crude oil? What's up 20 cents at $46.77. What about the mighty Bitcoin Futures Composite Index? Right now it is up $1,210, trading at 19,230 after topping out at 19,430 earlier in the session. Well, what about nat gas? Well, it's up 8 cents. Moving strong here, powerful at $2.67. Soybeans up 4 at 11.64 selling off after hitting the 11.73 handle in the overnight session. Corn is down 1/4 at 4.23 It's off of its overnight highs of 4.28.5. And wheat down 14.75, trading at 5.99 3/4. It's really down after hitting its overnight high of 6.22. That's right. Strong bond getting pummeled down 28.30 at 172.25 U.S. dollar index weak, down 42 pips at 90.54, threatening to drop back into the 80s handle. That would be significant. We're at the do or die level. Remember what I told you many moons ago? 90 is the White House strong dollar policy threshold. You need to have a dollar at 90 or above. Drop below 90 and you're in the danger zone. All right. You hit 88, you are now at DEFCON 1. All right. Because that 88 to 78 10-point range is critical. If you drop below 77, it is definitely DEFCON 1, nuclear impact imminent. You don't want to see that. White House don't want to see that. All right? This is important, ladies and gentlemen. We're there. We're at a very unique juncture. Just like the pound sterling is up 143 pips at 133.81. And the euro is up 44 pips at 121.87. And the Aussie is up 31 at 75.75. It ain't no joke. We in real la la land. Question is, can people see the forest for the trees? I have a little revelation for you this morning. I've been doing a lot of digging, researching, and studying, pouring through my charts and the whatnot. And I've come to the conclusion that not only is the U.S. on its way out as being a world superpower, but I have some hope for those that think that everything is going to be all bad. And don't get me wrong, it's going to be all bad for the U.S., no doubt. Don't get that twisted. But the rest of the world is going to be just fine. I know you find that hard to believe. You see, the world is not becoming communist, Marxist, fascist, socialist. No, I just want you to believe that. The world is about to become much more capitalist. You ain't seen capitalism yet, but it's going to be capitalism on steroids. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The party has yet to begin. So while the world is partying like it's 1999, the good old US of A will not be. All right, so just want to let you know that it's on its way out. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, no matter what you say, no matter how you feel, you need to come to grips with that reality. All right, but the rest of the world is going to become extremely capitalist. There's so many things going on that you are not privy to that it's going to pretty much make that a certain reality, which means that prosperity will be broadening itself. You're going to have a lot of new millionaires for those that can reach out and grab it. Unfortunately, you also have a widening of the poor. The distance between rich and poor is about to be a lot greater. Welcome to the Hunger Games. Why do you think this is going to be? And how do you think it's going to be? Well, remember, there's a lot of infighting right now between the elite, those people that work in the shadows, they operate in the shadows, they control what's going on in your economics, in your economy, in your financial sector, in every sector of your society. There's infighting. Everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to be in power. Therefore, you're going to see a lot of power struggles, not just in the USA, but abroad, because there is going to be a regime change coming afoot. And that's what all the powers that be are up in arms about. And they've included us into their squabbles. That's why you got this whole COVID-19 thing going on. All right. It's not about Democrat and Republican, you guys. It's about something much bigger. So where do we go from here? Well, you don't know where you're going until you take a look at where you've been. If you don't understand where you've been, then you have no idea for where you're going. We're at that 100-year cycle, ladies and gentlemen. 100-year cycle. So you need to understand that along the way, before you can have this better day, before you can have this new super mega uber capitalism, global capitalism on steroids, you're going to have to go through the pain first, because as the U.S. is toppling, as the giant is falling, it's going to make quite a loud sound with a shock wave that will reach around the world. So what are the comparisons? You've heard the comparisons about comparing the United States of America to the Roman age, the Roman period. Rome and the U.S. share a lot of similarities. But this 100-year cycle is probably a little bit more powerful than the Roman comparison. You see, the roaring 1920s had a real dark secret, and that was the over bullish view of the market and the economy was a flawed one. Yeah, you need to take a look at what's coming. This is what lies ahead. And we'll look at it from a man on the street, from a Wall Street perspective. Are you ready? Okay. This is a quote from Ed Yardini. Quote, "There's certainly a precedent for our current times in the past, one that was truly unprecedented back then. World War I was followed by the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, which infected an estimated 500 million people and killed as many as 50 million people. Given that the world population was 8.1 billion back then, that implied a 28% infection rate and nearly a 3% death rate. Both stats are currently significantly lower for the COVID-19 scamdemic. Today, the global population is 7.5 billion. There have been 20 million cases and 735,000 deaths worldwide as of December the 7th. The good news is that the bad news during the previous precedent was followed by the Roaring Twenties. So far, the 2020s has started with the scamdemic, but there are plenty of years left for the prosperous 1920s to become a precedent for the current decade. If so, the driver of the coming boom will be technology-enhanced productivity, as it was during the 1920s, end quote. Now, while the reasoning certainly seems sound, there are vast fundamental differences between today and 1920, which will likely render the analysis aforementioned mute. Now, the fundamental problem of technology is thus. According to Ed, technological progress always confounds the pessimist by solving scarce resource problems. It also fuels productivity and prosperity, as it did in the 1920s and could do again in the 2020s. Now, he is correct that technology will continue to evolve and impact society in numerous ways. However, there is a fundamental difference between the impacts of technology in the 1920s and today. As he notes, the rise of automation and the automobile's development had vast implications for an economy shifting from agriculture to manufacturing. But Henry Ford's innovations changed the economy's landscape, allowing people to produce more, expand their markets, and increase access to customers. Now, technological advances led to increased demand, creating more jobs needed to produce goods and services to reach those consumers. Now, conversely, the use of technology today reduces the demand for physical labor by increasing workers' efficiencies. Now, since the turn of the century, technology has continued to suppress productivity, to suppress wages, and subsequently the rate of economic growth. So here's the technology's dark side. Okay. However, these policies have all but failed to this point. From cash for clunkers to quantitative easing, economic prosperity has worsened, pulling forward future consumption or inflating asset markets exacerbated an artificial wealth effect. Now, such led to decreasing savings rather than productive investments. One of the reasons is because majority of people are scared. They are shook when it comes to investments. Now, the critical distinction between the technology of the 20s and today is stark. When technology increases productivity and output while simultaneously increasing demand by increasing reach, it is beneficial. However, when technology improves efficiencies to offset weaker demand and reduce labor and costs, it is not. Given the maturity of the U.S. economy and the ongoing drive for profitability by corporations, technology will continue to provide a headwind to economic prosperity. But then we get this elephant in the room, which is, drum roll please, the fundamental problem of debt. Now, another difference is the level of debt. One of the fundamental requirements for creating strong economic growth rates is low levels of leverage. Now, in the 1920s, consumers had very little, if any, debt. Such was also the case with government debt. Such allowed higher economic growth rates and overall prosperity as incomes did not get diverted to service debt. At the beginning of the Roaring '20s, total credit market debt to GDP was 154%. Such was also about the same level as the debt to GDP when we entered into the Roaring '80s bull market. Now, importantly, when talking about bull markets, the amount of debt in the system plays an essential factor. The last time the debt to GDP ratios hit such a peak was going into the Great Depression, not the beginning of the Roaring '20s. You need to remember that because that makes a humongous difference. What is the problem of economic growth? Well, glad you asked. Since debt can retard economic growth by diverting savings into debt payments rather than productive investments, such also provides a significant headwind to Mr. Ed's Roaring '20s aspirations. Now, the current deviation between the market and underlying economic growth is the largest in history. Given the high correlation between the economy, corporate profits, and stock prices over the long term, the market capitalization to gross domestic product ratio tells us a lot more. All right. When you take a look at that, you'll see that the indicator shows that when disconnects between market participants and the underlying economy occur, like it is now, a reversion ensues. The correlation is more evident. We're looking at the market versus the ratio of corporate profits to GDP. With a 90% correlation, investors should not dismiss these deviations. There's additional confirmation with an 84% correlation between the S&P 500 and corporate profit growth. Now, since corporate profits are a function of economic growth, the correlation is not unexpected. Hence, neither should the impending reversion in both series. The current detachment would not exist without the Fed's largesse. When it comes to the state of the market, though, corporate profits are the best indicator of economic strength. The detachment of the stock market from underlying profitability guarantees poor future outcomes for investors. But, as has always been the case, the markets can certainly seem to remain irrational longer than logic would predict. However, such detachments never last indefinitely. Now, profit margins are probably the most mean reverting series in finance. If profit margins do not mean revert, then something has gone badly wrong with capitalism. If high profits do not attract competition, there's something wrong with the system and it is not functioning properly. And that is a quote from Jeremy Grantham. Now, as opposed to Ed's view of surging markets ahead, the reality is the current detachment of the market from the economy guarantees investors a poor outcome in the future, and there's no way of getting around that. Currently, the ratio is near 1.5, or more than twice the historical average. The only other time it was this high was in the first quarter of 2000, as the tech bubble was bursting. And most people at that time were unaware that that was in the process of going down. Such an outcome will undoubtedly be disappointing this time around. What about valuations? Well, the stock market is not the economy, but the economy is a reflection of the very thing that supports higher asset prices, which is corporate profits. Now, lastly, given the understanding of the relationship between the economy and the stock market, the idea that stocks will remain permanently detached from fundamentals is unlikely. Importantly, Ed's view of markets entering into another 1920s era misses the point of valuations. In 1920, stock market valuations were less than 5 times earnings. Context is critical. Those low valuations and subsequent market surge followed a nearly 20-year-long bear market in stock prices, not bull market. Such was due to a banking crisis in 1907, followed by World War I, and a rarely discussed economic depression heading into 1920. Now, low valuations combined with a depressed economy led to a massive recovery driven by sharply higher economic growth over the next 9 years. But let's deal with the elephant in the room. We had an economic depression heading into 1920. The 100-year cycle is spot on because in 2019, we were also heading into an economic depression. You can make an argument that the scamdemic of 2020 is nothing more than a disguise to hide the economic depression that started in 2019. So looking back, it is hardly the case today. After an 11-year expansion, extreme leverage of the financial economic systems and valuations elevated, support for a 20s melt-up is limited. Such periods have not coincided with a subsequent decade of roaring asset prices, but rather a disappointment. So the 1920s analogy may be a little off because of that. While the idea of a roaring 20s market is undoubtedly optimistic, it is also a dangerous concept for investors to buy into. All right? The stock market over the long term reflects the underlying economic activity. Personal consumption makes up roughly 70% of that. Given that consumers are more leveraged than at any previous historical period, it is doubtful they will become a significantly larger chunk of the economy. As such, the capacity to re-leverage to similar extremes is no longer available. Let's also not forget the singular most important fact. Our history's previous secular bull markets grew from extreme undervaluations, washed out financial markets, and extremely negative sentiment. Such was not the case over the last decade, as the Federal Reserve and governments have pumped more than $36 trillion into the economy and the stock market just to keep it afloat. Now, afloat rather than growth is used in this situation because during the last decade, economic growth was a function of population growth. Monetary interventions were successful in creating inflation and financial assets. However, during the same period, the economy grew by only 2.92 trillion. In other words, for each dollar of economic growth since 2008, it required only $12.67 of monetary stimulus. Such sounds okay until you realize it came solely from debt issuance. So what is our conclusion here? The secular bull market of the 1920s is probably the best example of the cycle, the 100-year cycle that we are ending, not beginning. In 1920, banks were lending money to individuals to invest in the securities they will bring in the market. Interest rates were falling. Economic growth was rising. And valuations grew faster than underlying earnings and profits. There was no perceived danger in the markets and little concern of financial risk, as stocks had reached a permanently high plateau. It all ended rather abruptly. Now, today, while stock prices can be lofted higher by further monetary tinkering, the underlying fundamentals are inverted. The larger problem remains the economic variables inability to replay the tape of the 20s, the 50s, or the 1980s. At some point, the markets and the economy will have to process a reset to rebalance the financial equation. In all likelihood, it is precisely that reversion which will create the setup necessary to begin the next great secular bull market. Unfortunately, as was seen at the bottom of the market in 1974, there will be few individual investors left to enjoy the beginning of that ride. These are facts, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to like it, but you do have to acknowledge it. That is the elephant in the room. Why is this happening? It's happening for a lot of reasons. A whole lot of reasons. I mentioned it back in the day on the Wide Awake radio show with the late, great Charlie McGrath. We talked about how the powers that be wanted to control and have access to more control of our lives, and that they weren't going to stop, with just taking just a little bit. They wanted the whole thing. They want all of it. They want to control everything you do, everything you hear, everything you see, with little to no exceptions. That is where we are right now. That's what we living at. And we have to deal with that. Because if you don't know what's going down, then you are not really prepared to deal with it. And we deal with things here on this live. We don't avoid stuff. What's the one thing they figure that they can control? Well, some would argue it's the air that we breathe, hence the carbon taxes and all that stuff with the green idea. But it's not. It's not. We got to rewind the clock a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Fast forward 3 years from when I talked about that with the late, great Charlie McGrath back in 2013. On January the 16th of 2016, then President Obama declared a federal emergency for the city of Flint, Michigan. Remember that? Over the contamination of the city's drinking water. 1 year later, not only is the city still struggling to provide clean sources of water to Michigan City's population, but the plight of residents in Flint has opened up the conversation about a water crisis in the United States that very few people even knew existed. That's right. The sad story of Flint, Michigan gained national attention because it was a crisis that was entirely avoidable. At least for the time being. Back then, Republican Michigan Governor Rick Snyder was looking for ways to cut costs, so he hired an outside manager to come up with ideas on how to do that. Unfortunately, one of the ideas that was put into action was to change the source of Flint's drinking water from the Detroit water system to the Flint River, which was known to be heavily polluted. When that contaminated water hit the city's aging water delivery infrastructure, the chemicals interacted with the lead pipes, causing dangerous levels of lead contamination for residents who did not have water filters. Now, the problem with Flint, Michigan, and the problem with many water delivery systems throughout the United States is that lead pipes are time bombs. Like most metals, lead will break down over time, especially when it is exposed to corrosive water throughout its existence. When you have close to 1.2 million miles of lead pipes for water delivery in America, pipes that only have a lifespan of about 75 years, and many are reaching that age, you have a recipe for disaster that experts warn will cost close to $1 trillion to fix. The only reason that the crisis in Flint, Michigan was brought to the public's attention was because of one woman, a pediatrician named Mona Hannah Atisha, who began noticing the symptoms of lead poisoning in an extremely large number of children from Flint Now, the doctor went public with this information, which prompted investigations from civil engineers, leading to the unveiling of the problem. Now, at that time, the good doctor's discovery that the contaminated water had been flowing through taps in Flint for approximately 2 years. Sadly, Flint is just a tiny piece in a much larger story. Likely the reason the crisis in Flint made national headlines is because of the level of political incompetence that went along with it. But the story did wake people up to the idea that dangerous water could be anywhere. And that led to investigations by reporters who uncovered one of the potentially most overlooked stories of 2016. Now, on December the 19th of 2016, Reuters released a startling report about America's drinking water. Reuters' investigation concluded that there were nearly 3,000 other locations in the United States where the lead contamination in drinking water was at least double the rates found in Flint, Michigan's drinking water. That's right, double the rates. These were not areas where the contamination was the same or even slightly elevated. No, no, no. These 3,000 areas have contamination levels that came in at least twice as high as Flint, Michigan. Taken directly from the Reuters report, the poisoned places on their map stretch from Warren, Pennsylvania, a town on the Allegheny River where 36% of children tested had high lead levels, to a zip code on Goat Island, Texas, where a quarter of tests showed poisoning. In some pockets of Baltimore, Cleveland, and Philadelphia, where lead poisoning has spanned generations, the rate of elevated tests over the last decade was 40 to 50%. Lead poisoning spanning generations. Good grief. Now, like Flint, many of these localities are plagued by legacy lead, crumbling paint, plumbing, or industrial waste left behind. Unlike Flint, many have received little attention or funding to combat the poisoning. To identify these locations, Reuters examined neighborhood-level blood testing results, most of which had not been previously disclosed to the public. The data obtained from state health departments and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention tracks poisoning rates among children tested in each location. According to the Centers for Disease Control, at least 2.5% of children in the United States have elevated levels of lead in their blood, a direct result of drinking contaminated water. The World Health Organization, as reported by the Huffington Post, says that infants and small children may exhibit no signs of lead poisoning in their early years, but that the effects of lead on brain development become evident in adolescence, according to the Huffington Post. Once kids reach school age, cognition problems, including lower IQ and ADHD-like symptoms, start to show up. Lead exposure has been linked to physical problems such as anemia, kidney dysfunction, and high blood pressure, as well as behavioral problems, including aggressive behavior and problems with the criminal justice system. We should also note that in these studies of contamination, researchers focus only on lead contamination. The levels of other toxins such as mercury, arsenic, and commercial and household chemical contamination could potentially make the water in these areas and others far more toxic than the set of data indicates. Now, complicating matters further is the fact that testing children for lead contamination typically falls on states and municipalities, and that funding is drying up quickly. Remember, this was back in 2016, people. In short, states not only lack the funds to repair their aging water infrastructure, but they also lack the necessary funds to study the negative effects of that aging water delivery system on the public. Now, while the widespread contamination should raise alarm bells for every American, what might be even more terrifying is the fact that analysts are predicting that in a few decades, we'll be lucky if we can even afford to drink contaminated water. Did you get that? Analysts are predicting that in the near future, you won't even be able to afford to drink contaminated water. According to a new report from Michigan State University, a variety of compounding factors in the United States should easily push large portions of the population out of the financial range to even afford water in the future. This is a man-made problem, ladies and gentlemen. No doubt being escalated by those in the shadows. According to a new report from Michigan State University, okay? Now, they say that a variety of pressures ranging from climate change to sanitation and water quality to infrastructure upgrades and placing increasing strain on water prices, estimates of the cost to replace aging infrastructure in the United States alone they project that to be over $1 trillion, and it's needed, and that money is needed in the next 25 years to replace systems built circa World War II, which could triple the cost of household water bills. Triple the cost of household water bills. Triple the cost. Over the next few decades, water prices are anticipated to increase to 4 times current levels. Prices could go higher if cities look to private providers for water services who have a tendency to charge higher rates than public providers. These pressures on water systems, combined with the fact that water is a vital necessity to sustain life, place this issue at the forefront of the 21st century infrastructure challenges. Now, while studies have found that Americans are willing to pay more to maintain and ensure access to water resources, this willingness to pay may conflict with their fundamental ability to pay for water. Now, the report notes that water prices across the country have risen by about 41% since 2010. And if this particular trend continues, 35.6% of American households will not be able to afford water services within the next 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. It's 2020, about to be 2021. We are at the 5-year mark. Are you waking up to what I am saying now? 2021 is going to be a devastating year for the world, especially the United States. The water affordability crisis is not something that is a few decades off or even a single decade off. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking months. More than 40 million American citizens could find themselves unable to afford water in the next 5 years, which we are now at the time that this report was done back in 2016. These problems are very real, and they are problems that are generally not gaining very much attention. Of course, the mainstream media doesn't want you focusing on this. That's why they're not talking about it. Now, while the water contamination crisis will occasionally steal a headline or two every now and then, virtually no attention has been paid to the fact that we're pricing a third of the United States citizens out of the water market. Resource scarcity breeds conflict. That's been true throughout human history. And when we're talking about something like water, the single most important thing to sustain life, the looming scarcity should be a top concern for every American citizen. Why did I bring this up? I had to give you the background and lay the foundation for what is coming and what I'm about to hit you with shortly. We're not done yet. You see, the water wars and America's fate is already here. It's already here. India versus China, Egypt versus Ethiopia, Israel versus the Palestinians. The water wars are already here. The U.S. also, yet American and European policymakers remain disastrously blind to them. This is certain to have catastrophic consequences for the wealthy, arrogant, and ludicrously complacent elites of the West. The problem in particular is acute in the United States. Indeed, it has been growing for half a century, but has reached such enormous dimensions in the 21st century that the neocon imperialist Republican, neoliberal imperialist Democratic, and green policymakers are all oblivious to it. How can this be? It is because all three sets of ideologues and opinion shapers overwhelmingly live on the east and west coast of the United States. In both areas, water has always been plentiful and climate mild. These regional prejudices go back a very long way. They explain why Theodore Roosevelt practiced arrogant elitist imperialism against not only the unfortunate peoples of Central America and Northeast Asia during his fateful presidency, but also against the inhabitants of his own country's heartland. For it was Roosevelt who initiated the bizarre practice of cutting off vast quantities of prime land across the nation from human usage and declaring it national parks, worshipped blindly by all liberals as well as the Green Party to this day. Theodore Roosevelt's policies were followed by later presidents, most notably the Gipper, Ronald Reagan. So today, an amazing 95% of the population of the United States remains concentrated on only 7% of its land area in truly tiny concentrated suburban bubbles around a handful of great cities. Yet more than twice that area is cut off from any productive use by the American population because it is designated as national parks. However, these empty places are also extremely dangerous ones. They swarm with predators, human as well as animal. Thousands of people, especially young campers, disappear in them every year. It is virtually impossible to get reliable statistics on this from the federal government, which has a vested interest in hiding its own criminal incompetence and failure to protect its own people. And that's that's a whole nother broadcast right there. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Missing 411 project with David Paulides. That is a very real situation. He started with that investigation into the national forest, national parks in the United States. It then expanded to Canada, and then it expanded worldwide. And then he took it to another level and realized that it was happening in the urban cities across the world as well, and even happening in broad daylight, happening in large groups, small groups. Hunters have turned up missing. Professional hunters, professional outdoorists, I'll call them, people who are expert mountain climbers and expert trackers, expert, hikers, campers, whatever. Even they've gone missing. Even their own forest rangers have gone missing. Law enforcement has gone missing, never to be heard from or found again. That's a whole nother broadcast. For those that are unfamiliar with it, just go ahead and type in the Can-Am project here on YouTube. And you'll find it. Just type in Missing 411 or Can-Am. You'll find it. David Paulides, he has a YouTube channel, and you'll get very familiar with what's going on. He's written several books on the subject, extremely well researched and documented, and it's really off the hook. I believe that's probably the reason that they cornered off those sections in the Midwest and things like that, for that reason. All those quote unquote national forests had to be done because they know what's going on up in there and what's living up in there, and they don't want to alarm the American public. They don't even want the American public to know. In my professional opinion, my humble opinion, I believe the Missing 411 situation is a greater threat than anything that has to do with the whole UFO agenda. And that is my humble opinion. If you haven't researched it or read the books, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But let's get back on track. So at the very least, usually unarmed romantic suburbanites who dream about the nurturing joys of nature or the complete loss on how to survive in the wild when they get lost and wander even a few hundred yards away from major roads. Yet the Republican hegemony across the heartland United States has been based on their hatred of scores of millions of people cut off from key resources by these romantic and arrogant imperialist policies. Now, this conflict indeed decided the 2016 U.S. presidential election. It explains why all the heartland states, including many with generation-long blue democratic traditions, unexpectedly swung red behind Donald Trump. So you got to understand that this is very political as well, okay? And what this means is that the great populations concentrated in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and Miami have no idea of the true environmental realities that exist behind their romantic green policy dreams. They have no sense of how much fresh water they consume or how limited its supply always was, even before global climate change started to dramatically shrink the water labels. That's right. You didn't even know that, did you? Water tables are shrinking, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this development is a long term. In the long term, very good news for Russia and Canada, since it's already freeing up enormous areas of land and resources undreamed of in their national histories. But it means that American neo-imperialist dreamers waste their military resources on crazy misadventures from Afghanistan to the Ukraine when they should really be deploying them to safeguard the water resources of New York City and the Appalachian Mountains, or those to Los Angeles from the water-hungry western states. This is not happening. All right, fresh water is the ultimate essential resource for the aquatic mammal known as the human race, and loss of it will be fatal for hundreds of millions of people. For the American people, those inconvenient facts are about to impact very hard. Why am I belaboring on this? Why am I on this so hard this morning? It's because I had to lay the foundation to bring you to this point. You will not believe what I'm about to tell you, but it is a fact. Let's go into it. Drum roll, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we already have what is called weather futures traded on the exchanges. And no, you as a non-participant in the elite society have no access to it. You cannot trade it. No, no, no. The retail spec has no place in there. They won't allow it. But now Wall Street is getting ready to add to the already mysterious weather futures. Drum roll, please. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they are getting ready to trade water futures as we get closer and closer to water scarcity, and it's burgeoning and not going away. Fresh water is an ultimate essential resource for the human race, people. The loss of it is fatal for hundreds of millions of souls. For years, we've been talking about the water wars, not just in the US, but across the world. Remember back in 2013, I was telling you about it, and they came out with ETFs. The tickers are PHO and PIO. Those are the two biggest water ETFs. But now we got water futures coming, people. Starting this week, water will be joining crude oil, copper futures, soybean futures, and other commodities traded on the U.S. exchanges, which suggests potential water scarcity problems are coming. Farmers, hedge funds, and municipalities will soon be able to trade water contracts linked to the $1.1 billion California spot water market, according to Bloomberg, citing the Chicago-based Chicago Mercantile Exchange, better known as the CME Group. Water contracts will help users manage risk and better align supply and demand. They were first announced in September as wildfires ravaged western states. Climate change, droughts, population growth, and pollution are likely to make water scarcity issues and pricing a hot topic for years to come, along with the collapsing infrastructure that we just talked about. Tim McCourt, global head of equity index and alternative investment products at the CME, said billions of people around the world live in areas where water scarcity is a major problem. The idea of managing risk associated with water is certainly increased in importance. Bloomberg notes the contracts are based on the NASDAQ Vels California Water Index and will be financially settled, as opposed to physical delivery of the resource. The index started 2 years ago and sets a weekly benchmark spot price for California's water rights. Each contract size is equivalent to 10 acres feet of water, equal to approximately 3.26 million gallons. Patrick Wolf, senior manager of the head of product development at NASDAQ, said the new contracts will give farmers a best guess at how much water would cost months from now. Clay Landry, managing director at consulting firm West Water Research, which provides data to calculate the water index, said large and small agricultural businesses would be some of the first to trade the contracts. Without this tool, people have no way of managing water supply risk, Landry said. This may not solve the problem entirely, but it will help soften the financial blow that people will take if their water supply is cut off. We may live on a blue planet, but with 3% of all our water being fresh and as much of it is inaccessible, Wall Street has understood the coming scarcity of water and potential wars that could be fought over it. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't make this stuff up. This is not, you're not being punked. All right? It's not April Fools. These are facts. These are facts. All this water on planet Earth, and very little of it is potable water or drinking water. This water situation has been a raging debate in the shadows for a long time. It's just now coming out to the public. I remember the story I told you guys back when I first started, on doing the Wall Street thing, doing the broker thing. I had a debate. And I was like, I don't understand it. If there's so much money and, we got all these developed countries and all these different funds and things like that, why is it that, people don't have access to good, to water? I said, why can't they just build the stuff to take the water from the ocean, take the ocean water and create drinking water from it, potable water from it? I don't understand. I know the technology exists. And then I was hit with, well, who would pay for it? No one's going to do that. It's not financially feasible for them to do it, blah, 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 blah. I say, even in the United States, if the United States is the richest country on earth, and this was back then, of course, why can't this happen? I don't understand. The money's there. What about all the do-gooder, nonprofit organizations who have raised billions of dollars? They could easily go and create this and do that. Me no understand. And the reason why I brought that up, because I remembered back during the early 1980s when the show V came out. As you recall, they tried to bring that back, a few years ago, and they only did a couple of episodes and then they killed it. All right, well, one of the scenes that happened was the reason, the whole plot of the story was that, excuse me, the reason that the aliens came was not because, hey, we've been traveling through outer space and looking for life and we found it and we've been watching y'all for some time. We just want to help y'all and bring technology to you. We just want to help you, but that wasn't true. They said, we want to give you the technology in exchange for your water. We're not going to take much. We just want to take a little bit, which was a lie. They were here to drain all of the oceans. All right. And back when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But then I fast forwarded to the debate I was having at the time. I was like, I don't understand why everyone can't have access to drinking water. And I know that there's technology and machines and things that can take the water from the ocean and convert it and all this other stuff, right? And I was like, I know that we have thousands of miles of, crude oil pipelines. Why can't we have thousands of miles of water pipelines as well? There's no excuse why water can't be pumped to every country on earth. Fresh water. There's no reason why it can't. What's up? And they said, basically, no, that will never happen. What you are saying will never happen. It will never be done. I said, even though we have the money and we have the ingenuity to do it, you're saying that's something that will never be done? And they said, no, it's not. And I was blown away. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to put a little twist on it for you. I told you I was going to bring you something today. I've been sitting back and watching. There have been a plethora of TV shows coming out, movies that have been out. They've been pushing a whole bunch of different agendas, right? And I was like, wow, this is weird. Why am I seeing this? Why are they doing this, right? Remember, for a while, it was the whole alien thing. Every movie was an alien movie. Every TV show was an alien TV show. And then they switched from the whole alien thing to the zombie apocalypse. Everything was a zombie movie, zombie TV show, zombie cartoon, zombie video game, zombie. Even the CDC talked about the zombie apocalypse on their website before they took it down. So everything was zombie. Remember that? Now it's switched, right? Now everyone's talking about green this and green that and global warming and global cooling and man-made global, right? Then for the longest time, people were warning about chemtrails. The governments kept denying about the chemtrails. And then all of a sudden they say, you know what? Okay, fine. We've been doing chemtrails for the past 70 years. And what? What about it? What? We're only doing it because we're trying to save the planet, because of global warming, right? Same thing with the whole war on drugs. Well, the only reason why we're in certain countries is because we want all the opium, we want all the poppy seeds and all those. They said, oh, that's not true. It's not true at all. No, it's terrorism. It's terrorism. And then finally they said, okay, fine, you got us. We're in Afghanistan because of the poppy fields. Okay, fine. But answer this question. Would you rather us be in control of all these drugs, or would you rather the terrorists be in control of the drugs? So they admitted it. They were doing the bidding of the pharmaceutical industrial complex, because all of that stuff goes into the making of the synthetic drugs that every person on the planet takes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. They've been doing this because I've noticed something else. This is going to blow your mind. Everything that has to do with biblical eschatology, I've noticed they have been backpedaling, and it's almost like they're getting all of their excuses and spin ready for when the eschatological things start to transpire. They already have something to say when the rapture happens. They'll be able to explain it away. And believe it or not, because of the dark power and the strength of the deception, people are going to believe it. Now they're preparing you for the earth cataclysms that are coming during the period of eschatology that is yet to come. We know that the universe and that the planet Earth is going to be shook to its core. It's going to be doing all types of stuff. So they're starting to make excuses for all of it. So even if every volcano on the planet erupts simultaneously, which one day that is going to happen, it's part of biblical eschatology. They will have a reason for it. They'll just say man-made global warming. See, we told you this is your fault, humanity. You made this happen because of, all the aerosols you've been spraying. Your carbon footprint was too big. That's why the weather is getting so worse. That's why all these things are happening. And now, because of man-made global warming, now the stars are falling and the planets are colliding because of you. See, they're coming up with narratives already. Water is just the latest one to be added to it. See, I've given you what the facts were. Now I'm giving you the truth. The reason why they've added water to this is because water is part of biblical eschatology as well. There's going to come a time where there will be no more drinking water, no more potable drinking water, no more drinking water. You're probably bugging right now saying, what am I talking about? That is a part of biblical eschatology. There will be no more drinking water. The oceans of the world, every single last one of them, is going to become polluted to the point that it will reek and stink and even look like blood. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So they're coming up with an excuse for this. See, we've been telling you about this water scarcity. See, we know what he's talking about. See, it's the man-made global warming, yo. They already got the excuses ready, so they can explain everything away. You heard it here first on the PulseWave report. We deal with stuff here. We try to give you the facts with the truth so that you can make moves. This is why it's time to get your house in order. You're going to need it. You don't want to be among the tens of millions of people that are 100% reliant on the government to feed you, clothe you, and to sustain your life. You want to have the money to be part of the 1% yourself. And the more people that get financially independent, the more we'll be able to help one another. See, you can blow their whole plan up. Okay? You can blow their whole plan up. If more people become financially independent to the point where there's hardly any poor people left, their plan blows up. You dig what I'm saying? I want to say what's up to everybody in the live chat. I see my baby bro was in the live chat. What up, baby bro? Thanks for the support, fam. I appreciate it. Oh, you need to add me back to the brothers chat on the WhatsApp. All right. I couldn't. I sent you an email or something because I have a new phone now. I have a new phone and a new phone number. So, I tried to get in touch with you that way. I don't know if you saw it. So I need you to send me an invite to the brothers chat back on the live chat, on the WhatsApp. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't get it twisted. You got to get it together, man. If you ain't trading right now, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You need this income. I don't care if you have a good job. I don't care if you have job security. Nothing exists that is called security. Job security doesn't exist anymore. You need another stream, strong stream, consistent stream of income. You never have too much money. You never make too much money. You're going to need this money. You're going to need it, ladies and gentlemen. So you better make it while you can. Don't get to a point where you be like, man, I should have listened. And then you trying to get at me and say, can you help me? I need a miracle. I can't. I won't be able to help you. I won't be able to help you. I can help you now. But then I won't be able to. No one will. So please get it together, ladies and gentlemen. PulseWaveTrading.com. Take advantage of the quarantine discount that we got going on for 2020. Do yourself a favor. Come learn how to break bread with us. It'll be one of the best decisions you ever make in your life. All right? I implore you. You can do this. Anyone can learn to do it. It's not that hard once you have the power of the pulse waves on your side. It's all about who has the best algorithm. And right now, I got the best algorithm. Therefore, I can help you out. All right, with that being said, you guys, please share the video with someone. You never know who it may encourage or help. All right, and smash that like button. You know how YouTube's algorithms are these days. None of my videos will show up in any recommended sections of YouTube if you don't have a certain amount of likes. So we need to spread the word, man. If you appreciate this broadcast and you want me to keep doing this broadcast, I need y'all to get those likes up. Because if not, why waste my time? You know what I mean? So with that being said, you know what it is, man. Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I am out. Peace.